The atmosphere in the courtroom was dense, laden with the burden of unvoiced allegations and brewing animosities. It resembled a grand performance, with us as the reluctant performers, compelled to unveil our personal sorrow beneath the unforgiving spotlight of public observation. Across the aisle, she sat, an embodiment of serene detachment. She stood with impeccable posture, her dark hair drawn back into a sleek, severe bun that highlighted the striking angles of her face. Yet it was her eyes that captivated me, those icy, analytical eyes that had once offered me comfort, now brimming with a self-satisfied assurance that drove me to frustration. We had shared 12 years of marriage, what felt like an eternity, or so I believed. Ashley and I appeared to be the ideal couple, at least from the outside. Our home was a haven of comfort. Our careers flourished, and our social life brimmed with shared laughter and cherished inside jokes. We had constructed a life together, each piece laid with intention, or so I believed. Yet, much like a structure erected upon a base of deceit, our existence started to fall apart. It began quietly, a shift in her routine, a distance in her caress. I brushed them aside, attributing them to stress or a shift in my usual routine. Innocent, I was so innocent. Then arrived the murmured phone calls, the quiet discussions in the adjacent room, the late hours spent at the office that were unrelated to work. The initial significant hint was an errant receipt for a hotel room, a reservation not made for the two of us, but rather for her and another man. That was my initial encounter with betrayal, a sharp, metallic flavor that lingered on my tongue and refused to fade away. It was a mere paper cut in comparison to the impending sword that awaited. I faced her head-on. The scene lingers in my mind, the kitchen, filled with the familiar sense of our existence, now tinged with an unexpected bitterness in that moment. When I laid the evidence before her, her eyes flickered, not with shame, but with a hint of annoyance. At first, she offered no denial. Instead, she sought to rationalize it, a convoluted reasoning that positioned her as the victim and me as the source of her betrayal. She even claimed it was what she deserved. The words struck me with the force of a blow to the stomach. I felt an overwhelming urge to shout, to unleash my fury, to hurl every fragment of our existence right back at her. However, I did not. I simply remained in place, taking it all in, allowing the quiet to convey so much. I resolved in that moment not to grant her the pleasure of a theatrical display. I would maintain my composure. I would act with intelligence. This situation transcended a mere broken marriage. It was fundamentally about ensuring she faced the consequences of her actions, about making her grasp the depth of her betrayal. I was aware of the way to accomplish it. I began to compile records, noting dates, times, and every detail, ensuring that each piece of evidence was carefully documented and systematically arranged. I began to construct a compelling argument, a fortress of evidence that would shatter her illusion of purity. The divorce proceedings unfolded with a protracted intensity, marked by a tumultuous exchange of legal disputes and pointed allegations. The animosity emanated from her, intense and palpable, much like the warmth of a blazing fire. However, I was prepared. As I sat in that courtroom, the heaviness of the moment enveloped me. Yet within that weight, I discovered a profound sense of determination. It was clear to me that my actions were driven not by a desire for revenge, but by a deep commitment to justice. And there she stood, gazing at me with that self-satisfied, assured demeanor, a wordless proclamation of triumph. She believed she had triumphed. She was convinced that her deceptions, her carefully crafted schemes, would shield her. She believed she was invincible. The judge, a woman exuding tranquility and keen observation, requested the presentation of the evidence. My attorney, a keen and experienced expert, systematically started to present the case. He laid out the hotel receipts, the credit card statements, the photographs, every piece of evidence I had meticulously gathered. Ashley's expression stayed steady, her smirk resolute. I observed her, a chilling sense of pleasure swelling within me, eagerly awaiting the instant her meticulously built reality would collapse around her. The atmosphere in the room was electric, like a tempest on the verge of unleashing its fury. Then arrived the pivotal piece of evidence, the one that bore the weight of her entire existence. A sequence of written communications, a comprehensive and intricate series of dialogues, extending over several months, rather than mere casual interactions. These writings uncovered not only her betrayal but also the chilling, strategic manner in which she had orchestrated her deceit, ensnaring not just me, but also her paramour, a man who, as it happened, was likewise bound by marriage. They unveiled a labyrinth of deception so complex and intertwined that even the most adept deceiver would have found it impossible to evade. The judge recited the transcripts, each word striking like a hammer against Ashley's meticulously constructed barrier of protection. With each sentence, her smirk wavered, her composure began to unravel. Her eyes, filled with alarm, scanned the room frantically. The arrogance dissipated, giving way to an expression of pure, unfiltered fear. Then, there it was, the moment I had been anticipating. A text message to her lover in which she clearly articulated her intention to financially drain me in the divorce, employing the affair as a tool for manipulation. She referred to me as a fool. This marked her downfall, the revelation of her heartless intentions, her complete absence of regret or ethical direction. It was a declaration that laid her character open, exposing the profound layers of her deceit. Her complexion drained of color. Her hands shook with anxiety as she urgently confided in her attorney. The courtroom, moments before alive with expectation, descended into a profound hush. I could nearly perceive the cogs turning, as her reality splintered beneath the burden of the truth. The judge, her demeanor serious, regarded Ashley and spoke with a measured authority that filled the space around her. "This evidence is quite incriminating, Ms. Walker. It creates a deeply unsettling image. It addresses not just betrayal, but also calculated malevolence and a shocking violation of trust." The gavel struck the wooden block with a decisive, echoing crack, a sound that reverberated in Ashley's ears, marking the end of her meticulously constructed reality. A wave of near satisfaction washed over me, yet it was laced with profound sadness. This was not a triumph, not truly. It marked an ending, a concluding segment in a heart-wrenching tale. The divorce settlement was decidedly in my favor, with the financial consequences of her deceit firmly placed upon her. The ruling served as a confirmation of the truth, a definitive statement that her deceit would face consequences. The world had crumbled around her, not with a sudden bang, but through a gradual, painful disintegration. Her attorney, once overflowing with assurance, now appeared completely demoralized. Ashley, ghostly and trembling, avoided my gaze, her eyes glued to the table as she grappled with the depth of her misjudgment. She believed she could outwit me, that she could carry on her charade without facing any repercussions. As I exited the courtroom that day, it wasn't triumph that filled me, but rather a deep sense of relief. The burden that had been weighing on my shoulders for what felt like an eternity had finally been released. I glanced back briefly, seeing Ashley seated there, a picture of defeat. The expression on her face, once filled with confidence, now reflected a blend of terror and utter despair. The panic was palpable, the dawning awareness that she had crossed a line, that her meticulously crafted schemes had unraveled, utterly and disastrously. Her silence resonated more profoundly than any shout. She had misjudged me, confusing my calm demeanor for fragility, my endurance for unquestioning faith. Yet, the reality is that I possessed a strength beyond my wildest imagination. Ultimately, it was that resilience, combined with honesty, that triumphed in the end. As I strolled away from the courthouse, I cast my gaze upward at the sky. The day was bright, and I felt ready to step forward, leaving the remnants of our shattered marriage in my past. The conclusion may not have been joyful, yet it marked a closure, and that was what truly counted.